All right. What the heck? So now we're recording on everything. For some reason,
Are we live now or still on the
we're
recording mode?
we're live
Okay.
now on YouTube, so you can add any of your streams or any of your accounts on the top there. You can add.
I've never. I'll see if I can do, but I'm really bad at technology. Everything of my case, and even with the fake lawyer that I found last year and took 10,000 from me. Why was I saying that? All my case, all of it is on my Facebook page. I've put it public under my name, Sue Sproule, SUE, SPROULE. But I get very much censored on Facebook because even the article of the Huffington Post Quebec that was published 20th June 2018, when I try to pass it on Facebook, it says this content is not available in Canada. It doesn't want to take it. The only place I am not censored, but I am shadow banned, and algorithms don't show a lot of posts of victims of corruption and whistleblowers in Canada. But thank you, Mr. Elon Musk and X or Twitter. I call it Twitter. I started in 2019 in December. I didn't think I was going to get on a path like this, but here we are. Kirk is a ranger from Lac La Ronge in Saskatchewan. He's now in exile in BC, living on his boat with his family. They've burned down his house and they've auctioned off his main residence in Lac La Ronge for back taxes and all kinds of unreasonable fees. And because he's been without revenues and struggling, just like I have been for 6 years for him, 10 years, no revenues for me. And we had some podcasters that were on X and on Facebook that were kind enough to take us on and let us tell our stories in the last years. Kirk had started with another whistleblower, David Rover. I think he's a geologist. He worked for the government in the mining industry, but he had to leave the social networks because of harassment and other issues, but I'm not fully knowledgeable on his case, so I rather refrain than making mistakes. He's the honorable guy that tried to do the right thing in exposing corruption in the government. And now Kirk and we're on our fourth week of doing our little podcasts. Even Grok is now identifying us as podcasters instead of Canadian whistleblowers. Imagine that, Paul. And
That's great.
That's where we are. And today Kirk had a personal thing, and he sent me a text before that he was giving a ride to an elderly because there was another elderly in their community that passed, but he's going to be maybe trying to join from a distance, and or at least I know he's going to be listening. And Paul kindly volunteered to do today's hosting. I'm not a professional, neither is Kirk is. We're doing this because we feel there's no other venues for people like us, whistleblowers and victims of corruption, so that people can really know what's going on in Canada. And one of the main reasons is Unifor. That's the most powerful and most corrupt union in Canada, and they control the Canadian press industry. They have the organization called the Media Action Plan, and that's where all the government money and in subsidies goes. It's Jerry Diaz. I don't know. I know he's still in the shadows, but officially his name's been removed from everywhere, and his wife, Leslie Diaz, are the ones who got the $600 million from the government during the pandemic to distribute to the media so that they would continue the narrative, the Pravda, information for the government. And also the government has changed the rules in the CRTC that says that things that are being told on news channels don't have to be the truth. They're only entertainment and opinion pieces. And the proof of that pudding is any type of article you read online. You'll always see like the title, and right underneath you'll see opinion, 2 points, and the name of the journalist or the so-called journalist. So you know for a fact that it's only opinions. So now that the CRTC has passed that type of ruling, you and I can also be journalists and give our opinions on things that are going on, and we're not doing anything illegal. But with Bill C-63 that they're trying to push, and I think it's already in the third reading, if I'm not mistaken, people like me and you and anybody that's speaking the truth, they're going to call us disinformation, misinformation, and they're going to try to shut us down and maybe even fine us, and if they can, even jail us. Because right now, victims of corruption in Canada are being prosecuted, and they're using the legal system to even jail people that suffered from abuse and corruption, raped, any type, you name it. I'm covering a case of the Child Protective Services, a whistleblower on Quebec human trafficking of children and the Child Protective Services. And they're not taking the complaint of her rape when she was 15, but they're trying to put her on a permanent gag order, and she's going to trial on the 8th and 9th of September. Sorry, I've been talking a lot, Paul. You should have cut me off. It's your turn now.
No way. This is what the Truth Table is all about. And you're giving facts, you're giving information. It's valuable because people can look at this over and over again. They can collect this data. The RCMP is coming after us for speech now. Yet we've got the government itself pushing a Bill 67 was critical race theory, teaching white children to hate each other. That is a form of hate, and the RCMP is doing nothing about that. These politicians should be in jail for violating their own law.
Exactly. Treason. You know, at this point, it's treason. If you look up the pure definition of what is a treasonous act, all our entire political class, media, NGOs, charities, unions, professional orders, College of Physicians, you name it, they've all committed treason. And I'm just grateful. And I feel fortunate and extremely lucky that even after 14 years of everything that I've been going through, I feel I'm one of the lucky ones. And when I say that, it's because I talk to a lot of victims. I know you do too, and a lot of podcasters that support people like me and Kirk and you and others. The list is long. There's ex-lawyer disbarred by the Canadian Quebec Bar Association, Gloriane Blais, and Robert Wagner of the Supreme Court of Canada is involved in that. And all she did was expose the government of Quebec under Charest around a case that started in 2011 that was still going on when they disbarred her in 2022. And their way of trying to discriminate and discredit victims is always putting them through medical evaluations that are disguised in psychiatric evaluation that are meant to destroy your credibility, your mental health. They put you on strong medication, and after that, you're so weak, you're so powerless, you're so much in despair, and you have no strength, and you're mentally completely destroyed that you can't fight them. That's why I feel I'm lucky. I've never lost support of my husband, my family, and my friends. I have lost people along the way, but even some of those are coming around because now they're understanding that what I was talking about in 2012 that made no sense, that I could not understand, was institutional corruption. That's what I call it today. 2020 validated everything that I had been through, and I am extremely sorry for people not realizing what's happening to Canada. But the only conclusion is systemic, institutional government corruption.
Yeah. Actually, I would love to bring my guest on, Selgovae Pecht.
Yes, please.
He's been on episode 43, 54. I mean, there's quite a few of them, but I would love to hear him chime in on this topic and what he feels about that. Welcome, Selgovae. Oh,
can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. We gave you the mic.
Sound check.
You're good.
Okay. So I've been listening, and yeah, there's a common frustration across the population right now about the interpretation of our capacity of rights in a matter that is summary in general. Masking would be an example. One of the there's two big misunderstandings that the public have by majority. And that is the words that they apply and recognition of the presence that they have and the stage or environment they're standing when those words are expressed. This is important because individual rights are different than the freedoms enjoyed by a person in title. And you're trapped by the language. Okay? This is why when people say, well, we have a universal freedom of expression, all the words in that statement are not interpreted through the same lens of your emotions as they are under a, with a J, jurist over you. So the preamble of our charter, of our Constitution of 82, and I don't want to debate with people because the Constitution is a body of parts and one part can never diminish the other. So I'm making a reference to the preamble of our Charter of 82, which states recognizing the supremacy of God and rule of law. There's a whole bunch of elements in there that need to be acknowledged. So first of all, primacy of mention notes supremacy in all things. That's why you have copyright law. To every cow it's calf, to every book it's copy. And so when they identify the supremacy of God, they're making a reference to an interpretation of a moral standard, recognizing that the moral standard is what everything is measured from. If you can imagine that as a pillar of a scale, the ledger is rested on that, and then things are balanced out. Getting back to the expression of the will that flows through you, that is interpreted through expressions of acts and words, in particular in contract matters, which are all of title. Only entities can contract. How does this affect you in a summary matter now? Because it's broad to explain as to all the components that affect it. Why? Because when the system, the collective body called Canada in this case, or the province Ontario, or whatever, the municipality you're in, when that body, collective, that you are sometimes a part of and sometimes not, it is interpreted, unless you specifically speak with 100% accuracy, that you're illiterate if you can't invoke your individual rights well. And there's a whole bunch of words that you've been commonly taught to apply that you don't understand or have clarity and awareness expresses a capacity in a moment. So for an example would be, as a police officer will walk up to you on a matter. First of all, the only reason a police officer wants to talk to you when they otherwise wouldn't would be to arrest you. That's their only objective, ever. They don't waste any time in their day talking to you just for the fun of it. They're trying to obtain something. First thing they got to establish is the capacity of the will of the individual to which they are speaking. Excuse me, ma'am. Can I speak to you for a second? That's a title. And if you acknowledge it, you've made a consent that now provides a reasonable presumption over you of a capacity. If you're in the workplace, it's different, because when you did your job, when you applied for your job and filled out all your forms and all of that, HR asked you for a proof of citizenship. And then you would arrive with your short form birth certificate, which is the registered entity, the only thing that they can do business with. They cannot do any business or hold any power over you if you were to enter as an individual. And that's your long form. This is going to come up later in our conversation. So we're talking about differences of your rights when you're in an employment situation. So Sue, the other day you had a show with Kirk, and there was another lady that was speaking about how a woman filming, taking pictures, utterances between them. That's a summary matter. Whereas
what do you mean by that? I apologize. There's some certain terms I'm not familiar with. What is a summary matter, please?
Okay, so a summary matter can only apply to an entity in a collective, and that's because your capacity of rights are broader in a common interpretation than they are in a civil interpretation.
Okay.
So section property rights, everything that you manifest is your property. Your acts, your words, your imaginations, it's all your property. And the second that you consent to being in a limited capacity outside of the individual, but part of a corporate body, a work party, an association, a club, any kind of collective, any kind of herd, you are now have the capacity to presume that you can make intelligent decisions in one way or another that what you want to do. And so, and that allows them a presumption. In an employment situation, the Human Rights Commission works within the framework of the Canadian legal construct, which is under all the
Are
stuff
you
that they
telling me
speak
my
to.
case is going to be denied like so many others because it would open up a can of worms? They don't.
I'm not giving you any legal advice.
No. I
Right.
know that. We're just talking as people that are navigating a system that was meant to protect us, but is meant to protect corruption.
So going from the difference between the two dimensions, I'll speak to your specific case in the channel to which you are right now, which is in a collective, it is in a collective capacity, whether you know it or not, because it's in a civil process of interpretation right now.
Wow.
So you have to use precedent from within the civil process in order to have recognition as opposed to your inherent rights. Because that's the thing, everybody's given up on our inherent rights. You whether you feel you have or not, you have, because right now the only element that binds any recognition to the judge sitting is the Canadian flag. That Canadian flag represents the Constitution of Canada. By Queen's Proclamation, it was made the emblem of the nation. And because it's the emblem of the nation, it is the standard that represents the morality to which the rule of law works within. It is a fundamental of justice that it is wrong to persecute the morally correct. And if you are morally correct, the judge used to be, when that flag was present, irregardless of how the words that they spill out of your mouth in capacity and title, the judge is fully aware that you are educated within the system to participate in the system. And nobody's shown you how to speak consistently and fluently in the other dimension of existence, which they are fully aware and know how to do. And it's not just the words, it's a consent to the whole theater. Before you got into the courtroom, in any court matter, you would have been searched at the entry of the courthouse.
They do that now in Quebec, by the way.
What's that?
They search you. They search your things, and you go through a metal detector every time you go at the Montreal courthouse thing.
Yes, listen to me. The reason why they do that is to remove your presumption of innocence. It's part of the actus reus, mens res analysis. If you consent to being potentially a threat on entry, you've said you're free to presume being a threat at all times.
Presumption of guilt. They've really
Prove that to you.
thought about this, Selgovae.
Paul,
they really put thought into this, how to betray us, and that words are one way. By using words and inspecting you when you come through the court, because you have business there, you have things to do there. And you're automatically guilty because they got to check your pockets, make sure you're not carrying. You know what I mean? It's
Let me. You're using strong interpretation there. We're not automatically presumed guilty. We're giving them leverage to presume over you. Okay, so when we interpret it through our end of them, because the system is extremely sensitive about being found out about doing things such as, by definition, could arguably be human trafficking, section 27903 of the criminal code. All right. But you have to recognize another thing. The root of that right now has been built on consents that we made going back to 2015 by being okay with it. Okay. And then in 2016, they drafted a policy called the Policy on Communications and Federal Identity. Identity expresses the will of your capacity in a matter. And there's all kinds of elements to it. All right. You're either the individual with individual rights, or you're the person, the citizen, the Mr., the Mrs. They're all titles. Mm-hmm. So you need to be aware of that, but you also need to be aware of the forum that you're walking into, because there's consents made there too. Going back to that flag, that Policy on Communications and Federal Identity in section 2.2, the Treasury Board President, by edict, an agreement with the government at large, said to remove the Canadian emblem from all correspondence between Parliament and all offices that are judicial or judicial.
I saw that.
Okay, so when you walk into a courtroom now, the position of honor is to the left of the judge as you look at him, the judge's possessive right shoulder, and it's tightened behind them on the stage. And that sets a limit. Yes, that sets a limit that they have to work within. If you remove that, the only other emblem that's left in there is the Canadian corporate shield, which the Treasury Board specifically said to leave remaining. That's the only thing that's binding them right now, is equity.
Do we have any equity left, though, after our gold reserves have been dilapidated, though?
Well, going back to the summary and indictable, in a summary matter, which only applies to the person, the digit, because it says in the charge, every, and then there's a space, the word one, the offense, who without lawful excuse. It doesn't say without legal excuse.
It says lawful.
It says without lawful excuse. And the only way that you could present a lawful excuse is through a capacity of presence in the matter at the moment, which is yours to make in all ways. Canada was meant to be a garden, and you fertilize it with your participation. If it's a bad idea, your freedom is you don't got to do it, because the word freedom is a limited capacity within a capacity. So one of your privileges is to say, I don't like this idea. I'm not obligated to do it. I'm going to step out into my common capacity on that one. And I can argue it morally, because under Job 3221, you can't presume the title over me on this. You can't force me to do all of these things. But when that recognition that binds them to it has been taken away, and only equity matters, it's a different ballgame, because covet's now at play. And that's a sin.
Yeah,
they didn't invoke the War Measures Act on the public because of rights and protection of our rights. Ironically, that's why the public were there. I'm going to suggest to you that controlled opposition had them chant freedom in order to use that against them as a presumption of how they would fucking put enforcement over them.
I heard stories that all that was planned out to have a little bit of a January 6th type of thing.
I'm going to be careful about that, about just saying that it is or isn't. And what I'll say is this.
A lot of people in good faith, though. I'm not saying that everybody, a lot of people in good faith.
A national movement of that size with an intention and raise that many digits and all that money, and you don't know the difference between rights and freedoms when you're rolling in, you're either a complete fucking idiot, or you're doing it intentionally with masterful brilliance and intention. Either way, you got no business doing it.
I just know that legitimate people and real, genuine whistleblowers and victims of corruption that have tried to bring certain things forward. I'll give Officer Gross, Ellen Gross in Ottawa, an example. Myself, Kirk, Luc Sabourin, Michael Jackson, Gloriane Blais, Mylène Hébert, you know, the list is so long. Kirk and I, we do this exercise almost every time we're on our podcast. If we look at all these people, and for me to support somebody, I have to go look at their legal documents, not just take their word for it. And I apologize for certain people. It's it's extremely important that we don't lose our credibility. I know my case is legitimate, but it doesn't mean that every person, like you were just saying about the freedom movement and the truckers, there was maybe ulterior motives and people that were mixed into that to try to create something that may or may not have been of genuine intent. And I'm not sure. I did not analyze that too much. I'm more into the analyzing of documents and data pertaining to whistleblowers and victims of corruption, and attending court hearings and looking what's happening in the courts. And it's helped me understand that, of course, like you're saying, the system is suppressing my individual rights. And as an individual on this planet Earth, I've decided to stand up. But anyone who does is severely retaliated and their lives destroyed and put into a motion to even destroy your mental state. And that's why so many have a hard time speaking up, telling their stories in a coherent and logic matter. And I want to try to help them. I cannot help everybody because I have to carry my own case, and it's important that I put the energies into it. If that's the mission that God, the universe, the angel, the guides have decided for me, I don't know what to call them anymore, but I feel protected. I feel validated in my faith. I feel validated that I'm doing the right things like so many others. And I don't know which venue is going to help us finally get the truth out, but I'm really grateful for spaces like this, because more and more people are realizing that our mainstream media we're supposed to be the fourth arm and guardian of our democracy. Anyways, we can debate on that as well for a long time, democracy. But what I'm seeing and feeling is that everything's an illusion. Because I'm going into the courts and looking at both parties, looking at the judges, and you've just made me realize you're right. They took out the maple leaf flags out of our courts. And there's a lot of things that I've noticed, but you notice them, but you don't have the understanding of it until you have conversations with other people that it makes you realize certain things. So thank you. And you and Paul both have made me realize the importance of my words. But I have to mention that the nervousness and anxiety and the little things that have affected me and that are what I'm struggling to overcome makes it extremely difficult to even plan what's going to come out of my mouth. Like I'm talking with you guys like if I was talking with my neighbors or my husband or my friends or my cousin. For me, it's not a different conversation. And I feel that we're giving good examples as individuals who may or may not have the same opinions on a lot of subjects. We don't know the absolute truth. None of us do, but we're trying to have conversations, and hard conversations, things that people do not want to talk about, but that are important that we talk about, because there's multiple problems in our country. And there is a globalist agenda. We have criminals in power. We have traitors in our House of Commons. Our law enforcement are protecting them. Our court system are letting hard criminals out on the streets on bail, pedophiles, sexual predators, but they're keeping people in jail for wrong speech. And when you spoke a little bit just before, I wanted to remember that. You're right, the cops do have an agenda. I'll give you an anecdote. In 2019, I put a banner in front of my house of 10 feet by 13 feet with 2 paragraphs of the Huffington Post article that myself and 4 other colleagues of Air Canada, we had been the subject of an investigative journalist called Émilie Clavel, the only journalist that wrote a story. But that's a little miracle in itself, because by her doing that article on us in June 2018, by law, because I did put my face and name on the article, and I did not only put initials and a fake name like my colleagues that didn't want to be identified, they wanted to be anonymous, I now considered a public figure by law because my case is public. So I have some type of protection of the system. I don't understand that thing. It's just, I'm picking up on a lot of information. It's a big journey of education to understand what I have to do to stand up for my individual rights, like you talked to me so much about before. And that's it. When I put up that banner in 2019, it took me 3 months to go through municipal, provincial, and federal law to look up printing, regulations, size, and the rules. I'll give you some examples. The banner could not be more than 50% of the surface of the building you're putting that banner or billboard or whatever on. The language used cannot be foul, derogative, insulting, must be of public sphere. So at that article, Huffington Post, that's where I say it helped me, because what I would have put on there, if I had not been subject of the Huffington Post, I would have had no public words that were legal to put on a banner. But that Huffington Post article, I was legal. And you know what was another one in Quebec that I figured out, and thank God I did, because I'll tell you why in a few seconds. The French font has to be bigger and larger than the English font, and has to be first in any documents. That's Bill 101 in Quebec that obliges French to predominant in every communication. Anyways, I put it on the Tuesday of Easter 2019. Around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I was finished setting it up. 9 a.m., no, even before that, it was before 9 a.m. the following day. It woke us up. The cops were at the door. They already knew who owned the building. They already knew, had all the information, but they asked to speak to the people living here. And then my husband went, and it was his name and his brother on the thing. And that's another thing. You cannot put a banner on a building if you don't own the building. So there's a bunch of things that make it that when people want to speak up and want to do the right thing and try to get attention to wrongdoings or bad actions or corruption, whatever you want to call it, everything's put in place so that ordinary people like me would have an extremely hard time to make it public, on top of the media covering up our stories. Unifor is my union. They're a criminal organization. They're the ones who impose non-disclosure agreements on victims of corruption and sexual harassment, including rape. It's unbelievable. They're still doing it. Last week, another one called me. She was planned to go back to work, and they fired her. Anyways, I have to be careful not to give too much information. But like you say, the cops were at my house, but then everything was legal. And the following morning, 9 o'clock, the director of the city of Montreal with 2 government employees were at my door to make sure I respected the municipal bylaws. And again, I had done good work. Thank God I was trained well in my job and by my union, working health and safety and working with the Canadian Labor Law Part 3. All that lingo in there I was familiar with, and it helped me educate myself and understand what I was allowed and not allowed. And my banner was legal. I had it for a year in front of my house. Even Trudeau ran away elections 2019 when he came to my house, because he knows who I am by name, but he didn't know where I lived.
It's called awfully lawful. The term that when they come and presume it's illegal but they can't do nothing, that's a zone called awfully lawful. And that's where I'm talking about that lawful.
After our podcast, would you mind sending me that term to me, either Messenger, Facebook, or X? I would, because I'm learning on all these legal terms and these things. Thank you.
It's in assessments.
Okay.
So
look, it's been a long process. You know, I was on a lot of medication, and it's only been 17 months that I'm medication free. And again, I have to mention, I'm not a health professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a scientist. I have no knowledge in that business. I made a personal choice by doing my own research, by reaching out to friends that worked in the pharmaceutical industry. One of them had worked with one of the medications I took that I think contributed to what I have here that I'm trying to heal, because it took away some of my natural photosynthese sun protection of my skin. That's something we have naturally. Anyways, we can go long in that. I took a holistic approach on a personal determination to try to heal myself and get stronger again. And the only reason I feel I found my brain is coming back is because I'm off of all these meds. I was brain dead with all those medication. I was a walking zombie, sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day. I was neglecting my own chores in my home. I could barely clean my house, take care of my personal hygiene, do my own thing. And I thought I was going completely crazy and I was going to lose everything. The person you have here is not the person that everybody knew 14 years ago, but it is a person that's trying to rebuild and come back, I'm sorry, to the decent human being I've always been. And I'm not going to change who I am inside just because they want me to play a game and to adhere to a notion of a system that is wrong. And just because they put a tag on me as a person with a mental deficiency of 5%, just because they consider me out of standard or maybe even crazy, but I don't like using that word because that just is destroying our personal challenges that we have. Those are the tags, and there's so many more that will put on people like me so that you never have the courage and you always stay in the fear of the moment. And I am so grateful. I have no explanation to why I've been coming back, but I'm just grateful to people like you guys that are trying to help people like me, giving a voice to people like me. And I just want to contribute to something that is better. I don't want to leave Canada. I don't want to move from Quebec just because I'm considered out of standards. The standards that used to be have been diminished so much. We're morally bankrupt. People think that things that should not be normal are, we have no choice, we have to accept. I'll never adhere to that.
No, well, you know,
Sue,
when
to that point you made right there about in 2018. In 2018, the Canadian Criminal Code was repealed by Jody Wilson-Raybould and the Liberal Party, and they repealed the Criminal Code 296.1, and that was called the blasphemy libel. And that was with reference to the Constitution and that moral standard that I spoke about. They took an oath to a Constitution that was under the crown, that's under God's law, to protect God's law. And at the end of it, they said, so help me God, right up until Carney's the first one ever to not do it. Anyway, in 2018, they repealed that. And this is why when you ask a police officer in uniform, what is your oath? Recite your oath to me. They will not affirm it. They will evade it. Because the second they do, they acknowledge a capacity that, another capacity that exists. All right? So this is a demonstration. How can
you want to have a good laugh, though? You want to have a good laugh? Okay.
Let me finish. If you don't know your oath of authority, how can you use my words against me if you do not have any awareness of the limits to which your most basic role is?
I never knew what you're talking about. Yeah.
Moral schism. We are all thrown into it, and we are not noticing all the symbols that they removed that brought recognition to it. And it's a subtle ratchet strap choke. And by the time you realize the blood ain't flowing to your brain and you can't breathe, it's too tight. And I'm telling you the truth. The flag's not in the court.
I noticed.
Say their oath. They repealed any recognition to it in 2018. That act that was drawn up in 2016 was put into effect after modification in August 2019. The Policy on Communications and Federal Identity. They took the flag out of the court, they entered Zoom court, and they brought in fucking COVID. And nobody noticed. And they got a mass consent over years. To this day, people are still showing up expecting inherent rights through a video screen. It's
I know.
Impossible. You're not present. You're in the court in representation. And that's
in French it says présentiel. When you ask a judge to have your hearing en présentiel. Sorry, may not say
in English. The judge will then say in person. They want you to be there in person.
Exactly.
The capacity of person is less than mankind or man. Even the term, so if it's a summary nature and you're a guy, or even if you're a woman, and you go to them and you say, before they even approached you, what does your notebook define me as? And they will say female. And you'll say, you're making a presumption. You're presuming that I'm entitled as a wife, and you're presuming that that my husband's a thing, an it, because male, first male, maligned, malicious, malignant, malcontent, virtue. Ver is man in classic Latin. In classic Latin,
the part I wanted to tell you to make you laugh, when you say you have to ask them about their oath, I don't do that because I was not aware of it. I'm learning. But you know what I do? You know what I do, but I was doing this before. I've been doing this for a while. Okay, now that I've spoken with you as the person representing the police station or the director of the system, may I have a conversation, a few moments of your time as a human being, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as another ordinary citizen of Canada? They look at me, okay, say yes, and then I give them a...
Consented. The second that you say as a citizen of Canada, you've went from asking for an individual capacity to speaking in a collective capacity.
I never noticed. I don't have that experience.
Your words are used against you.
Oh, yes.
That's why lawyers tell you say fucking nothing.
This is
why with you saying nothing. Why does a lawyer go dead weight when they're approached by police in a matter that's summary? They go dead weight, and they don't say fuck all. Their will has left their body, and a coercive force has been put upon them. And at the moment that happens, a criminal act has taken place, and you can bargain out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
then what is your suggestion for What's your suggestion then for whistleblowers?
I want a classic. What's that?
My apologize. What's your suggestion?
Different fight. Whistleblowing's a different thing. When you're a whistleblower, you're within a work environment and a group, and you've registered and signed into it and said that you've willingly entered into it with your short form birth certificate. So your approach looking for inherent rights is not even an argument, because there's nothing that they have to bind to recognize it. So you have to bypass that whole fight and save yourself all that time and get to the root of the issue, is put back the element that gives recognition to my inherent rights, no matter what cast, because inherent isn't inherent if it's at the discretion of somebody else.
Exactly.
Even if you don't know your rights are present, our judges are obligated to recognize it. It's the only way they're protected.
Yep.
That Criminal Code 296.1, it was a indictable criminal offense to even suggest doing it.
Wow.
2
now,
years.
If I can break in for a sec, this is why I get Selgovae on my show so much. He's been on multiple times, because and you have to like pause and rewind, because it's so valuable to know these things that people miss and don't know. They're not taught in school.
No.
Yeah, so
look, I'm not trying to diminish my education or where I come from. No. I'm just trying to say that I never expected to be put in a situation where I'd have to become an expert in so many fields just to,
because you have been trained and promoted, and you've gotten success in your career when it was fruitful by participating correctly in the systemic approach to things. And so then when you have to all of a sudden speak to another capacity, you're going between dimensions in the way that you express. And this is going to defeat you every time, only because the judge was to recognize your mustering to your capacity. All you needed was a legitimate mustering, because it is an offense to the fundamentals of justice to persecute the morally correct, and judges determine that. They are the gatekeepers of morality under God's law, and that now, as a traditional value, is considered extreme. Let me remind you.
The RCMP officer said, if you have conservative values, you are a terrorist.
Sue, let me finish before we digress too far off. The very word extreme is without any interpretive value or meaning, unless it is within a limit and pressing. Unlike trans, because trans means outside of, opposing of, and across of. Now, when you consider the corporation Trans Canada, you think, well, it just means across Canada. Canada's not a landmass in legalese. Canada's not a landmass, so it's not what you perceive. And that's their magic working on your subconscious to get a fucking consent from you to fucking step away from the recognition of the supremacy of God. And the only people that do that are ignorant. But there's a difference between the interpretation of the word ignorant and aware. You can't be ignorant of something if you're not aware it exists. And you have a right to know. So if the system didn't teach you, they misrepresented truth. And they did it with an intention of covet.
Yep.
We're all fucking slaves.
I know. You know what? My Unifor told me I was the only victim, and there was no other and my case was complicated and blah blah blah. And we were over already 500 at the time. They lied like you say, they lied.
Okay, let me tell you about my story. All right.
Yep.
I was hired into the nuclear industry in 2002 directly from the Army. All right, by a contractor of. We got disconnected by a contractor of the nuclear industry, Global Risk Security Services, or private contractor run by former SAS guy named Alan Bell. You can look him up. He's a pretty sexy dude. Anyway, once we got into that, they contracted with my long form birth certificate. I'm the only guy in the history of the nuclear industry to ever do that. And when they started abusing veterans, because veterans were having PTSD moments and they're having a bad day at work, and they'd fire them. And I never really kind of figured it out at the time, and look, because it morally was not right. And so I began to discover my union is 5% owner of the company, Bruce Power. Bruce Power makes $3.5 billion a year. That 5% represents a massive amount of money and more than all the dues. Anyway, in the maxim of law nemo judex in casu sua, you can't provide or utter or claim to give any duty of fair representation if you are a fucking owner. You can't. You're in bias. So when they hire you into these jobs where you're armed up like a ninja and you have more authority than a Supreme Court judge, you can actually execute somebody if they don't follow your commands. I mean, it's in the rules of engagement. The actual terms and conditions, you are supposed to do a psychological review for anything you likely may be required to do in the course of your duties. That's the way they word it. The psychological review is supposed to happen every 2 years. We got guys breaking left, right, and center, committing suicide within emergency protection services. So when my diagnosis was peaking, probably by virtue of just being in the aura of that awareness, I began to ask questions. And the noose around my neck got tighter and tighter and tighter until 2019. Well, 2018, I wrote a letter saying I feel like I'm being discriminated against and I'm adversely and differentially treated in kind to my peers. And they ignored it. 2019, an incident happened in the workplace, an exchange between me and a couple other idiots. And fucking, I just quit. I didn't quit. I wanted to quit then, and I was coached and seduced. No, you don't want to quit, because they wanted to maintain control over me. And they seduced me into an LTD. And then when I 90 days into the LTD, I'm doing research. I'm like, why am I not on long-term? Why am I not on 90% or 100% on protected grounds? Because it's complained in the workforce. You don't want me there, but my offenders are still there. And it just one thing after another, I'm getting messed with. Delays, pays. I go half a year during the first lockdown, no paycheck for half a year. I go outside trying to forage food in the spring. The cops are telling me to go home by force. I freaked out, sent them a song. They interpreted it as a death threat. This is very generalized. And it was a reprisal campaign that they did, knowing that they wound me up and had me in a state. They charged me with uttering death threats because of their interpretation of this song. I take the common law approach and I argue about the flag. I did it for 3 years, from 2021 until just this last bit. I argued and fought tooth and nail. Now I'm in an appeal process. All right. So at the same time, I got a federal Human Rights Commission running investigation and complaint process. It's now left the commission, and it's in the hands of the tribunal. So the Human Rights Commission and the Human Rights Tribunal are two different bodies. One's over the other. The commission will process your claim and weigh it out with their jurisdiction, if you like, about, or their authority, as to whether it should proceed beyond what's been mediated at that stage or not. And there's a whole bunch of factors which I think Sue in the past has mentioned. So when you blow the whistle in the workplace on an incident, you got to do it right away. If you don't do it the moment it happens, a clock's ticking from the moment of that incident. And 1 year after on the anniversary of that incident, if you've said nothing by then, you got nothing. Yeah. Section 41E of the Act. But there's another element to it, because they can call it vexatious if you do not follow internal process first, or if you have reasonable cause to fear it. That would be a reasonable cause to fear and bypass that process and go straight to the commission. You're going to have to argue that hard, though.
Yeah.
So you have to give your employer a chance to internally deal with it, and you have to manage your time from 1 year out from the incident. If you recognize, because they all do it, that they're time cooking you, they're time managing you, everything's taking too fucking long. See, when they start an internal investigation, one of the first decisions that they have to make at the internal investigation, you've gone to a code of conduct officer or your boss or equivalent of whatever that would be if you're working on a landscape crew, the guy that rides a tractor. You go to them and say, hey, listen, I feel like this is going on. They have a decision to make. One of the first decisions that they have to make is the star power of the respondent of the matter. Because if that is like, say, your boss is the one that's taking the complaint, that could impact your situation, so you have to send it to an outside review. If it's somebody that's underneath you and it could be internally managed, you have to explore that side of the flow chart. So you have to let that, at least that process. If they go external, which is big corporations will always go external, because when they pull in Reuben Tomlinson, was in my case, or big boutique like that, they're going to work that channel and manage your fucking time, because they work. I don't care if they tell you that they're unbiased in their outside investigation and they're neutral. They're not. Okay? They work for the scope that's directed to them by the employer. Right. They work within the scope limits and all that by the employer. So when you try to speak to everything that brings relevance to it on the fringe of the matter, they don't want to know about it. They keep you narrowed in on that. He touched my bum at the water fountain. You know, it's not got nothing to do with how he made all the suggestive comments before and all of that. That external investigation is going to narrow that scope as much as they can.
I did want to get into your case, and if you wanted to talk about it, and so you're still on a.
It's kind of like, so what you see, one of the things is that when I talk about my case in a particular topic, it really doesn't do the broader public any good. Where there's lessons in my case that I can share with the broader public and that would be relevant in what they do, that's more valuable than just a perverted awareness of the entire.
And that is why I love you. Yeah. That's why you've been a guest so much.
Thing in the capacity. So your searches at the courthouse, 2015. Liberals get in office. First thing they do is start the searches at the entry of the courthouse to strip away your rights. There was a little bit of pushback from some of the lawyers and that, but at the end of the day, they all got brought in a line. So that carries on, and we all consent to that. 2016, they drafted the policy on communications and federal identity. They got that ready in the bullpen. But first, they got to get rid of Criminal Code 296.1 in 2018. So now traditional Canadian values are now considered extreme, and pride's beautiful. Vanity is a sin. Recognize supremacy of God, rule of law, right? So, and ironically, too, you can go into Google on this and type in the question on AI. Does Pride Canada endorse the traditional interpretation of the Canadian Constitution? Nope. Because it's under the supremacy of God. And they're outside opposing and beyond it. The word Like when they say to people, these are other words that you need to be aware of because they'll trick you with it. They say parents have no rights. This is true. It's true. An entity that expresses themselves as generally as a parent, père in French. Ent is the entity that consents to that. Inth is beneath and under. Ent is the entity. Entities are ghosts, fictional beings. Their title, agents, title. When they want your pronoun, it's because you don't get tied up with all this stuff. What a pronoun does is takes your name as an individual identity and turns it into a general, broad capacity. It limits you because it throws you into a pot of a bunch of other people and limits you from that individual capacity. Your fucking pronoun is your given names. Your given names. Your last name is an association. Your individual identity is your given names. My real first name is Jason. Okay? Before J, it was Y. Before Y, it was I. I, a son. Okay? And my name is a fucking pronoun. That's just the first one. But anyway.
That was, for the folks at home, that was a capital F with an exclamation mark at the end of the word.
So,
I just want to do a little parenthèse when you were talking about, the external investigation and the internal investigation. Just to give a relation to that, Air Canada went the other way around. They had 24 external investigations with an outsourced company from 2010 to 2012, but then they started getting too many complaints and too many employees were filing complaints to the commission. So they created a new program called, listen to this, you're going to love it, Harassment, Human Rights, and Privacy Complaints. But in the last year, they dropped off the privacy complaints because it was too obvious that the lawyer, Emily Kaufer, this is the lawyer they've put in charge of this program to make sure that all the privacy compliance of Air Canada are respected. So basically to suppress more victims to be able to make complaints. And since she's been in place, the complaints have been down, but the firings have been up. So she is in charge of doing the internal complaint process, and she determines if you were right or not when you go complain you've been physically harassed sexually or psychologically. And you can even have recordings and paperwork, paper trail, dates, everything. You will be terminated. That's what's happening at Air Canada now, and it's a lawyer in charge of that. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of information.
Yeah, that type of application of administrative force, lawfare administrative force, puts fear in people so they don't. So we're at one point prior, I was going to say to you, like when you were going through your personal odyssey at work, you had peers that knew full well you were going through what you were going through. The person that was doing it had friends that knew that they were doing what they were doing to you. A collective around you all kept their mouths shut because inherent rights didn't mean fuck all to anybody. It was just their bottom line. So you participate. So all these people are guilty for participating in a collective team that has a moral ethos to follow, but they're cowering in their individual capacity in that team, and they have no ability to stand outside it on their own at the same time. It's have your cake and eat it too. It's like when I went to court, first time that they brought me into court on a criminal matter, I was intentionally a hard time for them, but I was lawfully so. I called out all the elements in the court that weren't there. Judge wants me to come forward. I'm like, do you presume I can walk on water? I mean, I said that to him. You see, the whole fucking game that goes on in that theater is incredibly important to establish because you're not a lawyer. So the only thing you can do is lawfully resist that it's going to be hopefully recognized by a higher authority in the process.
It's my hope every time my case goes in front of another instance. It started with my immediate supervisor, then directors, then HR, then higher management, then health and safety, then the human rights, the union, the long-term, short-term disability, the insurance company, the WSIB equivalent in Quebec, that's called the CNSST. They all know there's a problem at Air Canada, but I'm talking about Air Canada because that's what I'm fluently knowledged on. Just like you, it's with your area of expertise, but it's something happening in all the unionized workplaces. It's systemic everywhere, and it has to stop. And they use the same mechanisms and methods and tools available to them to do all this destruction. And the only intent is to make sure that we're so weakened as an individual that we'll accept anything. And I almost accepted 3 years salary and my pension in 2017. It came close because my mother was sick and everything, and it was difficult for everybody. We lost my mother-in-law and my mom on that year, on top of me being fired. Anyways, I almost did. And they even came to my house to try to manipulate me into signing these documents where I would release the union and the company from any wrongdoing and that they had. I tried and did absolutely everything to assist me. And I am leaving the company in good faith, and I've been compensation, blah, blah, blah. By refusing to sign that, I lost absolutely everything. I don't know of any other Air Canada employee who has been removed from the Air Canada database. I know people that worked only a couple of years for Air Canada that are still in the Air Canada database. It's like they've erased my existence at Air Canada, and they stole my pension. The OSFI, that is the Office of for our financial institutions, refused to take a complaint, told me it was civil matter, get a lawyer. There's 136,000 lawyers in Canada, 28,000 in Quebec. Nobody takes cases like ours. I'm just an example, but I'm just one of so many. And I commend you for continuing your battle too, and standing up and going through the motion and going through the tribunal. My case is sitting on the desk of the commission since the 27th of November of last year. But I got information and update on a colleague's case of the Maritimes. Again, I have to be very careful. Not everybody is comfortable having their name and their story out there, and I don't want them to be retaliated more against because we're in communications. But that person had a very, very valid case. Let's keep it at that for now. The commission has denied, and they used a technicality. And I'm afraid that technicality, they're going to try to use it on you and I too. They say you have a year to put in your, based on your last event. But because the pandemic came in, it creates that everything was on standby. So the lawyer that's representing me, a small firm in Hamilton, they got it in, but Air Canada managed to reply with 63 pages of lies. So they're going to try to find a technicality again, because if I get heard in front of a tribunal, I'm opening up a Pandora box. I've heard it in court, and I've heard it from many people, not because I'm special, because it just shows to the pattern of bad faith and of destruction and the complicity of the employees and the union. And I really hope that we're, cases like yours, cases like mine, cases like so many others that have been standing up, will finally be looked at as a unit together. Because when you start looking at all these cases and you put them together, that's where you can prove a pattern of deception and a pattern of wrongful willingness, or like you just said, I like that word, I'm going to reuse it, lawful, bring it back to me, lawful.
So, 1 second though, you said that you're at the commission level right now.
Yes, I'm at the commission. Yeah, you know what? I sometimes mix them up, and that's why when you said that, I said, thank you, God, he mentioned that. I know, it's because there's so much to learn to be able to navigate, because we get no help. And I really appreciate what your story, even though I'm not going to pretend I understand everything, I don't. And on top of it, I may speak good English and everything, but I'm French Canadian. All my education was done in French. So when you start and bring out the fancy words and the legal terms and all that, for me, it's extremely difficult. I need my thesaurus or my translation, and I go look at the definition to really understand, like you said, the power of the words. But I have no choice now to navigate my case completely in English because we're ruled under federal law, because I'm at the Human Rights Commission level. But to a proof to your pudding and to your story and your 2 cents and all this that I really, really appreciate, by the way, is that I feel that they're trying to suppress cases like mine big time, like my colleague.
At the commission level, the 41E, which is the timeline, 1 year timeline, yes.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the inquiry level, that's already been determined by the commission level. What might happen for me still at the inquiry level is, I don't think they can, but if they can, they will. They'll argue it again, and they'll challenge it again as a preliminary matter. And they'll just, if it doesn't win it for them, it's going to drag the process out more for them, which is their goal ultimately, is to evade accountability, even though they say they.
I'm trying to find a lawyer to put in a class action suit against Air Canada and one against Air Unifor.
Because absolutely, don't do class action. Again, you're going into collective bodies, and the best way to kill a fucking force is by the boatload. Get them on the boat. Get them all in the class action. Crush them all at once. Fucking A, now I don't got to worry about any of them. No, you get yourselves together as a collective body, and you just do your own individual, and you flood the fucking system with individual complaints. You know they're going to fucking make you wait till you're dead anyway. So the system hurts 2 ways, time and money. You fucking open up wounds in them and you bleed them lawfully. If they're not going to give you what you fucking want, then you make them fucking bleed. It's it.
They don't care spending money. My case would have been a case easily resolved with a simple apology, and I was away from work for 6 weeks at that time, and at the end of July 2012, and I would have willingly, I just wanted to go back to work. Anyways, I didn't know I was in a bigger mess than at the time. I just thought I was the health and safety rep for the Montreal call center, doing her civic duty or due diligence, doing her job. I did not know that the reason why my superiors in the union were kind of not collaborating and trying to do their thing on this side and not wanting to put in the formal complaints, it's because they were in on it. I did not know that at the time. I only found out at the end, it was too late. I found out like less than a year before I was administratively terminated in the arbitration. And in my arbitration, in the pages, you have the testimony of the person who did, Julie Lorrain, that terminated me, the director of the call center in Montreal, where she says in the morning that, yeah, she was the sole decide person to terminate me. And yes, she read my WSIB tribunal court papers. And then in the afternoon, she admits she never read my court ruling, and she was instructed by HR and the legal department to terminate my employment. So you have that in your arbitration, plus you have a paragraph that says that, unfortunately, because the union presented the wrong article of your collective agreement, I'm going to have to acquiesce to the company, Air Canada, that your employment is terminated administratively. One point like that, no severance. I had overtime bank. I had a medical bank, we called it. It's like you accumulate sick days and you can use those. Anyways, I had just severance, and they stole my pension. But he writes in the last paragraph, I can't leave silence that we're dealing with a long-term employee of Air Canada with an impeccable employment record. How can you justify terminating people? I'm not saying that other cases and other claimants are not right or not wrong, but what I did notice is that the union, the legal system, and the process and the corporation will use anything they can to discredit you and destroy you and whatever to get you to consent, to comply to whatever you want. And when they don't get what they want, then they'll start this dirty stuff to try to even squeeze you. But they didn't expect me to refuse anything, so they didn't do really anything to me until I told them I would never sign a non-disclosure. And when I told them that I knew that my hearings were public hearings, they were not confidential, when they start seeing in 2017 that I was informing myself, that's really when the the hammer really came down hard on me, because they thought they had drained me sufficiently emotionally that they would have me signing these documents. Apparently, I'm the only one who's never signed a non-disclosure, and I'm the only one who's ever refused 3 years salary. And I don't know where I'm going with all that.
One of the things you got to remember is, like, everything you say, and I believe you. I believe that they all did that. But dialing back, corporations and unions work to make money.
I know. I didn't.
Right now, as I told you, let me finish. The recognition to your moral arguments that you're making have been removed. And this is why everybody's experiencing this and can't make sense of all the stuff that's happening in a broader spectrum, is because the moral recognition that binds the forum that creates our laws and says this is right and this is wrong at the provincial level and all of that, they've removed that binding. It's equity only. They're getting away with doing that to you because more people are going to not get any sufferance because they evade your situation. Meaning Air Canada won't suffer a big, massive impact of it, which will cost them tons of money and force them to fire people and people lose jobs over your personal inherent rights. Equity of the collective. When Carney stands up and keeps on reinforcing new government, this is a new government. He's not talking about a new government, the Liberal Party. He's saying in January 2024, Canada went to The Hague and signed the Apostille Treaty. Okay,
it's like the UN Migration Pact. It's like the World Health Order treaty. It's the whole thing similar.
Let me finish it. With 120 countries, it makes you one entity, one being, one legal entity, and that's it, nothing more, which means no recognition of your inherent rights. Apostille as a word means after. After what? Why aren't they telling us after what? Why is the word apostille applied and no further explanation around it other than this malevolent, intended, benevolently, seducingly applied language that says, oh, it's going to be so much easier to travel around now because you're just going to do this, and this. Yeah, no, it's not. No, it's not.
I know our government is illegitimate. I know it's. I don't call Carney my prime minister. I call every politician now in Canada a traitor. I don't. They're not my government.
Right, but we're speaking to a group of people through forum and platform where we're trying to, well, I'm not saying what I think. I believe in a collective. I'm not anti-collective. I believe in the word of freedom of choice to whether my inherent rights are present in a matter or I agree, and it's a limited thing. I participate in the Highway Traffic Act. I don't pull this roadside crap over fucking when I get a ticket. I don't, because I believe that enforcement should be there. That's a matter I agree with and I participate in. I don't agree that you should be walked up on the street because you think a certain way. I went to a court and said that I'm a living man. And I was sent to Penetang for 14 days in segregation on a mental health assessment. Meanwhile, a guy down in Windsor is saying that he's a lesbian cat and he's being sent to a women's penitentiary where he rapes more women.
I know, and it's not funny. I'm not laughing at the women getting raped. I'm laughing at the irony and the disgusting.
You can walk. Well, why it is because when you walk into a courtroom and say you're another than born flying fucking pony, you're under representation. You're an entity. They love that. They can work with that. They can't harness and bridle a living man. So when I
go, I'm going to have to present myself as a living woman. Is that what you're suggesting to me? That I'm expressing my individual rights?
The word woman, why all these people have a hard time expressing what the word woman means, and it's a question that comes up often. So like a Supreme Court judge in the States, it's a woman, I don't know. I can't. It's because it's a title. Woo, the prefix woo is wife of man. Fee is the wife of it. So title, I can be the wife of somebody if I want. I'm the wife of the creator. Okay, it's all it is what it is a title. So anybody can be that. So it's not an identification, and they divide sexes through property rights. So the argument about the collective he that's applied for man as a collective, or mankind as is said is mankind, right? Well, the reason why that's applied is because in your created form, you produce an egg like clockwork up to a certain point and at a certain point. And that happens, and you could fucking want to have a child till the fucking cows come home. Ain't gonna fucking happen until someone like me walks along and applies an intention upon it. It could be good, it could be bad, but until man decides that intention takes place, no creation happens. So that's why it's written like that in property rights. I didn't make it up. I'm not to blame for it.
I know.
Don't hate me for saying it like.
Oops, I just saw Paul pop back
I didn't
in.
create the language. All I'm capacities are when we express. So when you say that you express as the woman in a matter seeking inherent rights, then would be in that theory, your husband would be the one that would speak for you. So what you would do to be correct in today, the forms that they give you, they ask you what your gender is. In 2018, all government forms included only the word gender. They took the word
I know
sex
I didn't
out.
fill
That's
out
not
my
a verb.
last census. I refused
It's
to
not a
fill
verb.
out the
It's not an
last
action.
census. I refused to fill out the last census for that.
The word gender, gen means natural, and der is the agent noun. It makes that natural an agent noun. So gender, when somebody asks you your gender, you're immediately consenting to being entitled. So then what do you say? The same thing to say is transgender. You're outside of putting and beyond that title capacity. Now, they've dressed it up as something else and put it to your consciousness, and so people will resist that. What I'm going to do to prove what I'm saying right now is if you go in the Canadian Human Rights Commission, terms and definitions, and look up the definition of the term dead name, it's reserved for transgender individuals who do not associate with the colonial construct. Words to that effect. So
It
what that
identifies a
really
cat
means
when I
is
do
you're
that.
seeking inherent rights. You're seeking inherent rights when you do that. Your words are used against you. They express your will. And because they've dressed it in a bearded, fucking goofy looking weirdo reading to children and said that it's that, you now believe that that's it. Just like they took the rainbow, which is a covenant of God, and put it under that. Just like Hitler took a swastika symbol that was thousands and thousands of years old and meant something else. He turned it fucking 45 degrees and called it something else. And now we oppose and reel when we see it.
Yeah,
It's
what's
spelling.
really crazy is I did a show.
Evil doesn't create a fucking thing. It can only be possessed and rebrand.
It's like my first or second show was on the swastika and what it means, like the true meaning of the symbol.
It's the four seasons, the small bear and the big bear circle.
It's the Big Dipper and the procession of the seasons, and it's just where it is positioned astrologically. It's an astrological thing, but it means peace and love. It means all the opposite of what it means. It has been, but symbols don't change their meanings just because someone a jerk
hijacks it. They hijacked a lot of beautiful symbols. Yes.
Yeah, and to put the rainbow on the crosswalks, people are walking on it. They're driving over it. They're like it's spitting on the
creation of God. Yes, I agree with you.
The rainbow is a symbol, but they also associate it with everything outside of man and woman.
Exactly.
Man and man, woman and woman, change your parts, men wear dresses. I mean, everything associated outside of creation, natural creation, because plants have male and female, animals are male and female.
Basic biology. Basic biology
are definitely trans because they don't care if you're even another dog. They have no morals sexually, dogs. I mean, they just don't. They will have sex with anything, a squirrel, if they can get away with it. But nevertheless, that's another thing altogether. I'm just saying that everything is male, female. If you want to go outside of that, you don't get to conquer land with a flag. And that's what the flag
Mankind
is.
isn't male or female. Mankind is not male or female. Male is a sperm-bearing thing. And Fee is the wife of it. Man is man.
But mankind includes women.
When you graft it back to the original Hebrew, through the Latin into the Hebrew, this ish is man as well. But it's a version of man. Okay? And that's all goes back to that first vowel that I was talking about, which gives a representation of a text of a supremacy of deity, a vowel, L, and it's the dinger, the 8-pointed star. Okay? So I've seen people say that Amos in the Bible 5:26 or 5:25, where
Oops, did we lose him?
Yeah, I think we did. But
the connection.
The Star of David has no archaeological connection before 3 BC, the 3rd century BC. Amos lived in the 8th century BCE, at the fall of Mesopotamia, where the text through the Sumerians and Akkadians all flooded out. That's the when the levee broke, the walls of Akkad opened up, that fallen star came out of it. Through the firstborn, loved first beyond all others of Sargon, who we now call Enheduanna. E-N-N, H-E, he masculine, D-U of, Anna. And before Enheduanna left Akkad, by order of Sargon, their father, before that, they refused to create naturally because they were in he of Anna, a transvestite. And this is why she's the first that wrote. No, even women of royalty were property of the king. They had no need to know how to write. They had scribes assigned to them. Tia Tefe had a scribe, Barak. When Jeremiah the prophet brought Tia Tefe after the fall of Zedekiah up into the Ireland and all of that, Barak, the scribe, came with him. He was her scribe. So again, when you get to the property stuff and how we interpret things, going back to fallen star, and we're in a cycle.
We could have a conversation on that for a long time, because I was a major in history and geography, and I realized everything I was taught. I basically got diplomas for being a good, smart monkey parrot. So I wish I had went to trade school, because in reality, having a trade in your hands, you have knowledge and you can survive and do a lot of other things. But having a bunch of pieces of paper, you're just a pusher. The reason why they call us paper pushers, right? Because you're good on paper. That's it.
Well, before the Romans came and took over my people after we were chased out of Egypt, and we ended up in United Kingdom area, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. When we first arrived, we brought that knowledge with us about how to do all those different crafts and the diction. And through the Druids, there was many phases of learning that they had to do, and it was all diction, utterances. It was memory work. They had to memorize, I think it's like 1,000, 1,500, something like that, poems have to be memorized in an 18-year period. And that mantraing into their mind in perfect form creates a common sense. And they were the judges in the markets. Depending on how tight their torque was whether you went to them or not. Because if you made a bad decision, your torque got tightened. You get choked out. And that's sort of allegorical to the cable toe and the tie around your neck. You're muted.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I just wanted to say I truly value your time, and I want to thank you for being on the show so many times.
Yeah, man.
You give me so much insight and knowledge, and you know, some things people may never use. They may never go into a courthouse. They may follow all the rules and be good little sheep walking around, keeping 6 feet distance between other people, so our frequencies can't touch each other and
Oh, we used
affect each other. So I mean, I
we used
I
to
I
attend
thank
court,
you.
so we used to care, and we used to know when it was out of order.
But I want to thank you for being a friend. I want to thank you for being honest. And I do want you to keep me updated on your progress if you have some insight that will help other people in their own possible situations with what we're getting with the online harms and online hate speech. It's really scary, what we're facing together. But I'm glad that we have each other. I just want you to give your final words and anything you wanted to say um, before you're the guest on the 99th show.
No, yeah, thanks. So I guess the thing I want to leave everybody with is words are incredibly important. They matter, and you should take some time, especially around words that are particularly associated with identity, and unpack those into their syllables and start learning what the prefixes, suffixes, and roots of it mean, so that you have a better clarity of what you're saying. The other part about it is the symbolism of the theaters and forums to which you're in when you do that. Knowing what elements have power in it. Your national identity is most definitely powerful. When I was a soldier, we worked under the flag of Canada. We flew the flag of Canada, not the corporate shield. We worked under everything that represented under the Canadian flag. We have flags with the corporate shield. If we had that up there, we would have been there under equity alone, and that would have been a war crime. You can't do that. So, technically. So, yeah, be aware of all of that, your language, how you apply it. One of the confusing things, again, is workplace matters versus your out on the street matters. Recognition of your inherent rights in a workplace matter is not present right now in the way that you used to knew it traditionally, which is now extreme, is because the elements that they were used to have to be under have been removed. And I explained that already. And in other shows, if you look at it. So appreciate all of that. I hope I was not too convoluted in expressing it. I am a whistleblower. I am working within the framework of it. On the criminal matters that were reprisal against me, I took a common standing for many years. And I guess in my journey, one of the things that I'll say to bring more credibility and hopefully to what I'm saying, I've been at it since 2019, blowing the whistle hard. I've never asked anybody for anything but their time and their ear. That's it. I'm not grifting you for money. I'm trying to grift you with knowledge that you can take out and use effectively. I'm loading your magazines for you so you can go forward and fight. Rev 216, your tongue is your sword. Whoop. That's all I got, Paul.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure as always. I'm not ending the show, but I'm going to let you go and move on with your day. And
I just want to tell him while he's live, God bless you and thank you for your service. My brother served in the military as well, a long time ago, and I have the utmost respect for our honorable serving humans that have the heart in the right place and are trying to do the right thing. So thank you very much, sir.
Mutually, and I'm sorry that for the fact that we found ourselves in this situation, because up to this point, some residents I've failed in some ways. So I guess I just got to work harder, and I will.
No, we have not failed. We've survived. I look at us.
My caller, man. I'm going forward like a tracer. Don't hold me back.
I'm not holding back either. They can't take anything else away from me. I'm destitute. So I've even been hoping that Air Canada or Unifor would actually sue me to try to take me into a courthouse and try to justify in front of a judge that I would owe them any money because I dare to speak up the truth when they took everything away from me for refusing to consent and to be gagged with a money, like a vulgar prostitute. And
Yeah, so be careful with those terms that you use. Those analogies, like I know we're doing it in a common conversation here, and you're not going to employ that language necessarily in a forum.
But look, I don't have control.
When you do, they take that title and they use it against you.
You know what? I'm still going to speak with my heart. I don't have all the knowledge that you have. I have my own weaknesses and strengths. Even though I may or may not use the proper words or language, I know what I'm saying is coming from my heart and it's meant well. So I'm hoping that the vibration of my intent, even if I use the wrong words, are heard. That's my hope.
Yep, absolutely. I'm just trying to assist you, and because I know that you have a lot of knowledge, and I know that you have a lot of experience, and those two things, when properly ameliorated, will be absolutely lethal to the enemies that you face. So
not being afraid of them anymore helps. I do not fear them anymore because I see them. I don't see them with the respect I used to have for them anymore. I see them.
When you become awake to the fact that the word light grasps back to the Hebrew box, container, you put things in containers in order to create order. Now, hold that thought for a second. The word world that we apply all the time was grafted from the Greek cosmos with a K. And because it's Greek, it's without context unless something's added to it. It means either unity or order. You never have unity when you're in a perpetual state of seeking order. What do police and courts work to maintain? Order.
And to intimidate also.
They are preventing us from unity.
Yeah.
Through a jurisdiction with a J. Because the letter J was not invented until 1524.
I find it amazing all the knowledge you have in that brain, and you can just bring out in a conversation.
But if you want to know
man,
more,
person, or thing was ever fucking around the earth and mentioned in the world.
Wow.
Before 1524. And the letter G in God, G, this pronoun general term, that wasn't created until 230 BCE by a Roman. Okay, so it's very interesting because the First Nations here will say, "Ao." And when I was a child and they did attendance, if I said, "Yo," I got in trouble for doing that. If you do some research on what the name of God is, or one of the names of God, you're going to find, "Yo."
Everyone watching can see very clearly that we could go for 24
for a
hours.
very long time on these subjects. Exactly.
I'm going to shut down.
Now, if you want to know more, Selgovae is also on episode 43, 54, and 89. Thank you, brother. I hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it could have went on for hours. And
oh
hours.
yes, I can see it. It's I thought I had a lot of information stored up there. Wow, it's we all have our expertise and we all have our knowledge. We all also have our experience of life. It's quite a learning process for me.
Yeah,
I still do. I always come at things with good faith and trustworthy. And he's right. We've been programmed in a certain way. But I'd rather be a kind human that gets screwed over once in a while than becoming what I dislike in others. So I don't know where all of our journeys is going to take us. And it was funny that he used the word journey because I use that word too. I say I'm on a journey to fairness and respect. I even said that to the arbitrator, Brian Keller, and that if we could not come to a humane solution to this unreasonable situation, I think those were my words, if I'm not mistaken. I said, I'm willing to go to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal and the Supreme Court of Canada. But at the time, I had respect for those entities, and I still had respect for the process I was put through. And when I saw after my testimony with Mr. Brian Keller, after I finished, I think it was 2, 3, or 4 hours, I can't recall at the time, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "I'm sorry." And he ran away in front of all my family and friends. So they all said, "Sue, you're going to win this. They're going to have to whatever. So when the ruling came out a month after, because this was like the 31st of October in that area, and the ruling came out on the 28th of November, 2017, that destroyed me, because I felt humanity from that man, even though he was there and I knew everybody told me it was a fix. The fix was in. I really thought he was going to do the right thing. The only thing he did do, in my case anyways, was that last paragraph where he said I was an employee with an impeccable work record. But look, even though I was award of excellence, act of bravery for the same events that led to my harassment and my termination in the end, even though my bullies, abusers, were put to full pensions and did not get any criminal, because my case could have been a criminal case too. He said so. I had a time limit. But when I did go to the cops, they told me because I had a union, I had to go through my union. They didn't even want to take my criminal complaint. And I'm seeing that pattern too now. People that have criminal cases, that they're being denied. So anyways, we could go on and on and on, Paul.
I want to have some fun. Let's do something crazy and fun. Because you see, episode 88 was supposed to be like the last show. And then StreamYard gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. But so I got this thought that might be fun.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
You like that one, huh?
I do. It's awesome.
I don't watch any movies or anything anymore because that's it. Everybody tells me, "Sue, you've gone from being the person the most trustworthy and believing everything and gullible to now questioning everything and thinking that everything is corruption because you've been wronged." And I'm going to answer to that. I've realized that a lot of things are compromised, and because we cannot trust anything anymore, that's my new motto. You have to question everything. And the only things I do not question and I truly trust is the people that have already proven themselves to me, that are still there, and the ones that are taking actions that show their intent. Other whistleblowers that lost everything, other victims of corruption that stood up and did not take money and signed non-disclosure agreements and tried to do the right thing. Those are the people I have the utmost respect. And I'm really happy that you took upon Kirk Reese's offer to do this for us. And thank you for letting me be your co-host, even though you didn't speak much, Paul, today. You did. I don't know where all of this is going to take us, or take me, or take Kirk, or Luc Sabourin, Hélène Gross, the nurse in BC, Mrs. Hannah, Gloriane Blais, the ex-lawyer, Mylène Hébert, the whistleblower on the Quebec Child Protective Services human trafficking of children here in Quebec. Look, this case is really bad, and there's no coverage of it. Nobody has no idea what's going on in Quebec. And that's because, again, 75% of the population in Quebec are only capable of conversing and understanding French. I'm not saying that they don't speak English, but they don't have sufficient knowledge of English to converse and understand certain things that are going on in the rest of Canada. They want to pit us, Quebec, against the rest of Canada. I'm seeing it currently in the media. They're passing us as racists, as misogynists, as all kinds of stuff. Quebec citizens, although they speak French, they're no difference of the rest of the citizens of Canada. We all want the same. We want the corruption in our government gone. We want our institutions cleaned up. We want all government programs abolished, and we need our law enforcement. At this point, I'm even wondering if a cleanup's possible. I would say I know it's a little drastic. I do have a little bit drastic views on certain things, but I am always very respectful of other people's opinions. But what we've been experiencing and what I've been put through and other people for the last 14 years, because I know it and I have the proof of it, I feel that our government actually needs to be completely shut down, start over. Everybody loses their jobs. No more government pensions, no more government employees, no government programs, minimum taxation, and individual civic duties. We don't need laws. We don't need rules. We don't need regulations. We don't need limitations on what we should and should not do. We need more human decency. Everything is morally bankrupt currently in Canada. And I'm just grateful for the ones who are standing up, like me, like Kirk, like Luc Sabourin, like Gloriane Blais, like Mylène Hébert, like Michael Jackson, like Ellen Gruss, like Mrs. Hannah, and so many more. I don't want to forget any names. And I'm also grateful to all the podcasters, the alternative medias, Lux Media, Payman Ascari, The Missing Link, The Jason Levine Show, Sheldon Yakichak. You may all have different opinions of all these people that decided to do alternative media and go and be podcasters and everything. But most of them, now I understand because I'm doing one with Kirk. Our niche is giving a voice and a template for victims of corruption and whistleblowers in Canada, because not everybody will take our stories. So that's our main goal of Kirk and I, to make sure our stories are out there and documented, because we can go and do all the court proceedings as we can, and some of us are trying. However, if we remain silent, they still have the power over us. By using our voices and by feeling scared of not speaking up, they've won. That's why I say I've already won. And I was never in it to win or lose anyways. I just did my civic duty and what was right to be done in the first place. But the fact that I'm still here, that it's fact that I still was able to keep my humanity, my kind heart, and also to heal a bit up here, even though it's still difficult and I'm still suffering in a way. I feel lucky. I feel protected. And I want to say to all of you, God bless all the whistleblowers and the victims of corruption that are standing up against the evil that is going on, not only in Quebec, Canada, in the world. We're seeing it. We cannot deny it. I know it's hard. I know we feel very small and powerless, that we cannot make a difference, but you would be surprised what just speaking up and telling your truth can be, it's amazing. It's helped me heal. I never thought I'd be able to talk and tell my story. I'd rather talk about gardening or my mom's carrot cake recipe. But here we are. And thanks again, Paul, for taking over for Kirk. I would love for another time that you get to speak more, but thank you for letting me and our guests have a voice and trying to get our stories out there. And eventually, what I'm hoping with my own case mainly is to create a jurisprudence or a legal precedent for victims of unions and workplace that are controlled by unions and professional orders, because currently my arbitrations in the CanLE database under Unifor space S.S versus Air Canada, 28 November 2018, 4 days after my arbitration, it was already in the database, and they're using my arbitration to justify terminating victims of harassment with 1 year's salary, and you're canned and you get nothing. And that has to stop. And that's my little dream, that one day unions, especially Unifor, will be exposed for what they are. And that crack could open the door for a lot of victims to get justice, because those are the gatekeepers now. The unions in Canada are the gatekeepers, and we get the proof in the pudding with Unifor controlling the Canadian press industry. So anyways, Paul, we said we didn't want to go on too long. And also it's like, I'm not going to lie, it's being a person that has nervous issues and anxiety, even talking for so long, I feel I'm about to pass out. It may not show, but even though it's difficult, I always take it as a badge of honor and my civic duty to do these things with others and to share our knowledge together collectively and unite collectively so that maybe we have a chance to save our country, because we absolutely are ruled by criminals. I can't hear you, Paul.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, when you get a download of a lot of knowledge, it is very exhausting. It's spiritually exhausting, which is why I said I wanted to do something fun. So this is Bob the
Bob the fact checker.
Bob the fact checker on that did this, and I wanted to share it with you guys. This is the dawn behind this this show, Kirk Reese. This is his show, and I stole it for one day. But thank you, Kirk. And this is amazing. It's got his son in there and his story. So I'm going to share this and cheer everyone up and let your mind rest for a little while, because you got a huge download.
Out on the digital sea, where the tweets run wild and free, there's a man named Kirk with a heart sincere. Kirk 95908, that's he, a Canadian Ranger. Once patrolled the frost and snow, now he sails in exile with a story the world should know. He types with passion, truth his only guide, but the blocks keep coming like a rising tide. Oh, Kirk, keep sailing, don't let the silence win. Your voice is a beacon, though the shadows creep in. Brought by the masses, but your spirit's still strong. Kirker 95.9, they keep singing your song. He's got tales of fraud, corruption in the fray, a whistleblower's heart just trying to light the way. But the ex-crowd's quick, they nuke and they shove, yet Kirk keeps on fighting for the truth he loves. His ship's his fortress out on the open sea, exiled but unbroken, his soul's still free. Oh, Kirk, keep sailing, don't let the silence win. Your voice is a beacon, though the shadows creep in. Blocked by the masses, but your spirit's still strong. Kirker 95.9, they keep singing your song. From the icy trails where the Rangers roam, to a ship in the waves far from his home. He's a great guy with a heart of gold, but the world's not ready for the truth he's told. Oh, church, keep sailing, don't let the silence win. Your voice is a beacon, though the shadows creep in. Blocked by the masses, but your spirit's still strong. Kirker 95.9, they keep singing your song. So here's to Kirk on the ship in the night, a warrior for justice, to fight in the fight. Though the blocks may stack up, he'll never back down. Kirker 95.9, no wait, you're the talk of the town.
Oh, I love that video and that song. He's
Is that
truly an
awesome?
honorable man, our Kirk Reese. Thank you, Paul. That was really nice of you to put that on. And it's, yeah, we may be few, but united, we are many. And the more that join us,
all across Canada from the East Coast.
One day.
Another guest that was going to come on is Dana Lee Melfi. Now he's not here, but someone did a song for him as well, and he's known as the Peace Man. So I wanted to share that as well. He was supposed to be a guest, and I'm going to probably have to reprimand him for that, for not for being a no show. Like, very tardy, brother, very tardy. But I'm going to share this now. A song that was written for him too.
Across Canada from the East Coast to the West, Throughout this great land, we're all just doing our best to shine a bright light where corruption takes place, to give freedom its right and give peace a face. It started off slow, then it quickly picked up pace. The people knew it was time to go, and they began to hold space. One man with a beard, he stood with the flag. Not once did he fear, not once did he beg. Doing it to protect our citizens' rights, standing tall and proud in all of his glory. With love and peace, he battles this fight. This is the Peace Man story. Speaking for others who feel small, in each of their differences he found common ground. Trying his best so no one will fall, making his voice heard, his power is loud. What's close to his heart is freedom for all, justice to start, there is no more time to stall. But there is a man who's done all he can to stand up and protect this great land. He is a man who truly understands that citizens are the key. This is the Peace Man story. Doing it to protect our citizens' rights, standing tall and proud in all of his glory. With love and peace, he battles this fight. This is the Peace Man story. Standing for purpose and standing for the fight. Against the corruption, he's never lost sight. What truly matters, he's making it right. In cold blistering winds through the depths of the night. But there is a man who's done all he can to stand up and protect this great land. He is a man who truly understands that citizens are the key. This is the Peace Man story. To protect our citizens' rights, standing tall and proud in all of his glory. With love and peace, he battles this fight. This is the Peace Man story. Taken from us the powers of most humans and placed into the hands of the few, these are acts of treason. No matter what side you are on or what you believe in, he stood in peace with our flag for this reason. He understands and teaches that everything is connected while battling the heads of Hydra, the beast. Step one is to teach yourself awareness and reflect it, guiding and preparing all of humanity. But there is a man who's done all he can to stand up and protect this great land. He is a man who truly understands that citizens are the key. This is the Peace Man, proud to protect our citizens' rights, standing tall and proud in all of his glory. With love and peace, he battles this fight. This is the Peace Man story. Understanding that the citizens are the key, meeting people from every corner of the earth, unlocking, illuminating knowledge and the secrets they keep to save our children, humanity, and worth. Oh, Canada, do you see what he sees? Oh, Canada, we are the land of the free. Oh, Canada, all we want is our peace. Oh, Canada, oh, Canada. This is the Peace Man story. A peace man's journey.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful, eh?
It's exactly what I was going to say. And very talented musician as well. It's beautiful. Thanks, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Sue, for coming on. Thank you, everyone that was watching. Thank you for sharing. I mean, we're trying to empower mankind, our brothers or sisters, no matter what place, your geographical area of birth. We are your brothers and your sisters, and we're all connected. There's no war between us. So don't let them fool you. and think there is, because there isn't. Anyway, episode 89. It's actually amazing. Thank you, Kirk, for asking me to host. Even though I kind of usurped your show and called it the Truth Table.
It's okay. We're here for the same reason. We don't look.
7
Kirk
days
always says it. We're not. We're looking forward to going back to our ordinary, peaceful lives with our family. I have no intention of becoming a podcaster or becoming a online celebrity or whatever. Some people wanted me to become a open and only, even somebody told me open an only fans account, maybe you'll earn a good living there. I had to answer. I had that happen twice to me, and I said, look, if I wanted to prostitute myself, I wouldn't, it's not the only fans I would do anyways. We have no intentions
It's a
of,
terrible thing.
yeah, our intentions are like yours, Paul, and like many others, is to get the truth and the stories out that our mainstream medias are not covering. And that's why there's so many problems in our country, because ordinary citizens will have to step up to the plate and become citizen journalists and explain things and educate themselves and then share with others their knowledge and expertise. And every time I'm doing these, it's our fourth week, I am humbled and grateful. And I just want to say, God bless everybody. Keep the faith, your faith in your hearts. Keep the high energy. Wear the armor of God every day with honor and respect. And they can't do anything against us when our true powers are there. And as humans, we have more powers in us than we think. And part of their tools is to make us live in fear and just find your light. We all have that power.
Yes. Thank you, Creator, for our time together and
Amen.
information, and um, bring us closer together and stronger and closer to you, and understanding who you are, why we're here, who we are, and help us all, uh, fulfill our purpose. Make which I'm going to end with this, a song I wrote, the Truth Table theme song, which I shared with you. Thank you, Sue. And if Kirk needs me another day, I have 7 days, and then it's over.
And just to remind people, tomorrow Kirk and I are back 9 a.m. BC time, 12 noon Quebec time.
All right. Awesome. Yes, Kirk is on X and Facebook as well. You can find him. Thank you for joining us. Here is Angels and Devils.
Thank you, Paul. Have a great day.
having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.